My name is Greg Barnes, and I was in Scientology for 20 years. I got in 1979, and we reached the level of OT7. And my wife and I left in August of 1999 after having fair game practiced on us, and our life has been extremely bright since that time because we're looking at all the things that we had not looked at before totally, and said we don't have to justify the things that don't make any sense anymore.
I actually really started looking at things on the internet, and from that decided I'm leaving.
And you, Tori, how did you do on OT7? The reason I ask this question is this is supposed to be the top level of Scientology, which you're really clearing up all your problems.
Right. You're really supposed to be clearing your problems, exactly. And I started out, as I rode up to Ray Midoff towards the end, I started out feeling about this big, and by the end I felt like I was about the size of a pea. And I wrote it up to him saying, I am the ever-shrinking Thetan or being. It was just my whole universe and life got less and less and worse and worse. And things did, and again, just like Deb said, I just kept thinking, well, maybe it's something I'm not doing right. And I kept trying, and you've got all this agreement, this is a fabulous level, and people are telling you, yeah, you're on OT7, this is really going to do it. And it wasn't doing it for me. It was, in fact, getting worse and worse and worse till it's a major reason why I left. And finally, David Miscavige announced at the Golden Age of Tech event, you're only using 3 out of the 79 tools, but for $25,000, we can get you right back on the level doing it. And to me, that was not right. I wrote it up to him that night and said, hey, I buy a bad car, I come home, it falls apart, they bring me a new car.
Isn't it interesting how they continually discover new tools? New tools that Hubbard left, you know, when he died in 1986. And it just is amazing how they keep finding these things. But you know what? I think what I've found, and I've been out of Scientology for a couple of years, is that the game is that initially you get something out of Scientology, and then it wears off.
Right.
And then the next level is supposed to fix you up, or some new technology is supposed to fix you up. But it's an endless shell game of that kind of thing. It never, ever really resolves.
But it's not what they say it is.
Exactly.
No.
And you know what, something else too, guys? If the church was what it says it was, we wouldn't be here.
Right. And
Exactly.
And if you disagree, you're now critical.
Which people in the church right now are hearing that and going, see, she's, you know, which, no, it isn't. It's a point.
But what is, it's like, and that's the thing about Scientology, is like, I said, if they were what they said they were, we wouldn't be here right now, because you're brought in with these ideas, and look, there's no dogmas and there's no ritualistic ways of thinking. You can think
for yourself.
And all type of stuff. And it's like in the very beginning, you go, wow, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't like organizations.
Sure.
You know, and I was a Catholic or a Jew or a Protestant or Lutheran, they made me do this, and you know, hell and
you don't have to believe it.
And all that type of stuff. And here's something I can just be myself and believe.
Right.
And you know, and like you said, you come in like this, and
Yeah,
before you know it, that idea of personal integrity is like, your integrity is our integrity, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you're going to write a check.
Pay for it.
That's exactly
Step up to
right.
the register, honey.
And that's why I'm here talking, because I want people who are looking at getting into this subject to understand.
Right.
And I want people who are in the subject to go, hey, with all the things that you've observed that weren't okay, you know what? You're right.
You're totally right. Yeah, that's the other thing, because people sit on the level just like we did for 7 years or longer and go, it must be right because everyone's having so many wins. It isn't.
Amen.
It
and let me
is
tell you something
not.
else. And here's the other trap too. And I don't know how you feel about it, but this is how it was for me, is that you've spent all this time and money.
Right.
Are you now going to go look in the mirror and go,
it isn't working?
I mean, you are now, you're mentally trapped.
Right.
All your friends are Scientologists.
Right.
Your families are Scientologists. Your kids are Scientologists. And if you go, this is bunk, then they disconnect from you. Then they disconnect from you, and you're declared and you're declared, and you've lost everything.
Right.
And it's like, but I mean, I didn't think of it from that perspective, but it's like there was this thing going, this has got to be true, this has got to be true, this has got to be true.
You've put so much into it. You've invested so much.
Right. While we were in Scientology, would we ever communicate this?
No.
You couldn't.
You
That's
couldn't.
part of the other thing.
No.
You could never talk about whatever happened in session with anybody else but your auditor or your CS. So you couldn't find out that, hey, they're auditing you different than me. What's going on here?
No.
You could never tell your husband, I didn't like,
Okay, well, I didn't do
I
that.
didn't like this, I didn't like that.
You know, and let me say this too, it's like since Deborah and I have been out, right, and definitely tell me how you feel about this too, but our relationship has improved 1,000,000%. Because we're not living a lie, right? Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. We don't fight as much. I mean, we don't have this source in our life that we didn't, that we now recognize as the source, the Church of Scientology, that was actually suppressing us.
Because this was a non-religious school, but since we were no longer part of the Church of Scientology, I mean, this is how they went after it. It's like, actually, there were some of his friends' parents wouldn't let their kids play with him anymore because his parents are evil, so it must now be transposed to him.
Right.
Addict.
And this is what they do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is an organization that wants religious tolerance, right? And when he went to his new school, right, he talked about how nice the people were, right? And every day when I pick him up at school, I go, how was your day? It's a routine thing, how was your day? And he goes, great. Not one day has he said, it was not good.
Well, no. Well, actually, our son also is more cooperative at home. He used to be kind of, now he's cooperative since we got him away from any influence of Scientologists or Scientology.
Well,
So that's a fact.
I mean, with your children, Peter, I mean, did you ever notice, I don't know, I mean, tell us about any observations you have about your children.
Well, it had varying effects on them. The ones who were exposed the most were Max, who is now 19, and Mo, who is now 14. The second effect on my son Max is that he now totally believes in Scientology. And since I am a critic of Scientology, and he has learned that I therefore am a suppressive person. So very recently he wrote me what's called a disconnect letter. And I always brag to my friends about all the cool things you do. And, I love you and think you're a great guy, but because you don't like the Church of Scientology, I can never talk to you again as long as you live. Needless to say, this upset me, so I tried to call him up on the phone and he wouldn't take my call. I did find out through other sources, and one of the sources was Tori was good enough to give him a call and ask me how he was doing, was that he almost got in a traffic accident a couple of days before. And in Scientology, what you're taught is that you've reached some higher state of beingness, right? Where bad things shouldn't happen to you. So if something bad does happen to you, it's either because you're unethical or because you're connected to a suppressive person.
Somebody who's
Yeah.
evil.
Someone who's
evil,
squishing
who's
you
trying to
and
destroy
counter
you.
to you,
Now,
against you.
in this case, he had to conclude that the reason he almost got in a traffic accident was that he was connected to me. What happened to him was that he doesn't now feel that he is powerful as a person unless he is part of this group. He's lost his self-confidence outside the group, so he doesn't want to disconnect from the group. He'd rather disconnect from me. And of course, I live 3,000 miles away, so that's easy.
This is one of the biggest things for me. That's one of the saddest things, and everyone watching this, every parent should know that this is really a part of this whole situation, is that here's Peter who made up his own mind and decided to leave the church. It should be a simple thing. He left the church. But now here's his son feeling like he can't ever talk to him again because he's a quote-unquote suppressive. And I finally had to talk to Max and say, because I had talked to him about it, we'd agreed he loved his dad. I said, look, forget the church. Why can't you both just talk as son and father and just establish that line again? but he was so into this PTSness. PTSness. He was like, no, I really can't. I love my dad. I'm really going to miss him, but I can't. And so finally I said, you have to know this. I have to pass this on to you. Because it's horrible news, but it's the truth. It's a fact. It's happened. 3 children his age, 3 that I know personally, killed themselves. And all 3 were boys, and all 3 killed themselves because one of their parents had left the Church of Scientology, or they personally wanted to leave the Church of Scientology. And that is a fact. And the parents watching it can say, oh, it was something else. The truth is, every single one of them had that connection on it. And I told them, I said, you can't let this, you have to take care of your own life, and you have to make sure your life continues.
And I'm sorry, but maybe that's because if your parents are a strong influence in your life, when you have good parents, and they've positively affected your life, when you cut one of them off, then you're cutting off a lot of the support that makes you a strong person. Then
you can become more
and there's
dependent
that
on
pressure
them.
of like, should I, shouldn't I? And I think
What
they
type of
finally just
organization
started checking
though is
out.
this that basically divides families?
right.
You know, what type, it's like, you know,
What kind of religion?
oh,
That
please,
they say
don't
it's a
even go,
religion.
don't even
I
go
know,
there.
but I'm just saying,
But it's
they
like,
say
but what
it's
type
a
of
religion.
organization, whether it be a religion or philosophy or whatever, that would actually is so insecure in its basic beliefs that somebody who's no longer part of it is a threat.
Right.
That would actually take a child or a parent and say
Separate them.
and separate them because it's the best, not for the parent,
Right.
but for the organization.
The Church of Scientology puts out so much propaganda, and part of this disconnection program is so that you never see another side. You never hear about that family that was split up. You never hear about it. It never ever, you never even know it exists because it's part of the propaganda machine, and it's a part of keeping your awareness of this type of activity, keeping you unaware that this activity even goes on. Because if I had known about this activity 10 years ago, I would have took an interest to go, what is going on with my church?
Yeah.
Right.
I would have went, no, I don't stand for that. I do not go for that at all.
No. And the other thing is your friends. We can all talk about that. You know, when someone leaves the Church of Scientology, they dispose of them quietly and without sorrow. And that's actually in writing by Hubbard. You're gone. And it's almost like an artist erasing a person out of a picture. They're just gone. And it is really weird. When I went to leave, I literally only thought I was going to know 3 people when I left the church. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, I came over on the other side, and here's thousands, and most of my friends are here. I was amazed. It was like, oh, here's all the people I've been looking for years. I didn't know it, but you never hear about it in the church. They just kind of leave, and that's it. But the weirdest part is you lose all your friends. Not one. I have 2 friends. And I won't say who they are, but I have 2 friends out, and I have thousands of friends. They won't talk to me.
Right.
They just won't.
And
is that true?
It's totally
Your
true.
friends?
And the way I looked at it was this: were they ever really?
Right.
Your
but I'm
friends,
just saying
yeah.
that's of
Because
course.
if the only reality we have as a friendship is this organization, if that organization is gone, we have nothing. Right? Were they ever really our friends? And I've come to the conclusion of, yes, they were, but they're still under the mind control.
Right.
Yeah.
That. Oops, you fall into that category, I can't have anything to do with you.
Right.
Right? And they're still under that mind control, and that's really why I'm speaking up, because
Right.
I want people to know, look.
Yeah, know
it
ahead
is-
of time what's going to happen.
But you know, you said the key thing. You said mind control, and I would re-emphasize brainwashing, because what you described is exactly what happened in the novel 1984 by George Orwell, where these people were so close together, they were in fact lovers, they were a couple, and after the brainwashing, they no longer would speak to one another. They just walked off into their separate paths. That's what we're describing here. This is a group, and it does have some powerful mental technology, but it's not mental technology that improves you to some higher state of beingness. It is mental technology that can destroy you as a person, destroy your family relationships, and destroy your friend relationships.
Well, you know what? I look at Scientology, and I'm shocked and amazed at how many people could stand by and lie for the church regarding Lisa McPherson. Lisa McPherson.
Yes.
I'm surprised at how many people could stand by and watch Deborah and I go through what we went through, right? And go, well, you must have pulled it in. How many other people...
Right, or no, the other one they like to say is, well, you didn't handle it right.
Right.
Yeah, like someone told me the other day, well, you didn't really get it.
And
30 years?
And Hubbard's...
With what you're shown.
And describe what set checking is.
Okay, set check again is that, and once again, is asking you for harmful things that you have done. Because if you're asking for a reference for why they're doing it, and they can't produce it, and you don't like that, you are showing then disagreement and criticism, which could be alluded to the fact that you are hiding something from them.
You are not subservient.
No, no, you're hiding something
Right.
from them. This is the way it works. When in actual fact, it's in a reverse. They're hiding things from you, only they're always pointing the finger at you so you don't look at them.
Right.
They're always introverting you so that you can't look at them.
That is true.
That is their whole game. Continuous introversion so you don't see them.
And let me say one thing on that.
Redirecting your attention.
Right, totally.
Why don't we just legalize the mafia?
Right.
Exactly.
They're more humane. They at least just whack kill
Yeah,
you.
at least
The
there's
Church of Scientology
addiction.
will spiritually, mentally bankrupt you and then emotionally try to devastate you. And they try to do that with us.
And then spread it around that you're the one that's wrong.
Yeah. That's
The
their
theory
propaganda
is-
machine.
Yeah, the
It's
theory is
good.
that if you dislike Scientology and you are in Scientology, you must be a criminal.
That's right. That's the other false statement.
Now,
completely.
I remember the first time I walked up to Pickett, one of the Scientologists who was my handler, they have handlers to harass you, said, "What are your crimes?" And I thought about it for a moment. I wanted to be sure that if I did have any crimes against the Church of Scientology, that I was very careful on what I said. So I thought about my crimes about Scientology, and I said, you know what? Here's my crimes. I found out the truth, and then I realized I gave $1 million to a corrupt, evil organization that, I have to say this too. I was never religious. I didn't even believe in anything religious. But after I learned the truth about the Church of Scientology, I realized that if there is that much evil in one place, well, there's got to be that much good somewhere else. So there must be a higher force than us. So I found religion by getting out of the Church of Scientology, and let me tell you, that is the bridge to total freedom. Every time I walk in front of that church with a picket sign, I feel better as a person, and my life goes better.
Well,
that's the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's true. It is true because you're first of all you're being honest for
Yes.
the first time in a long time. I mean, for me, it's 30 years. And again, people go, "Oh, she really had big overs."
Right.
That's how they handle it. But the truth is, you're again guided where it's just there's certain things you can't really say. You can't. When I was ready to leave, you can't just pick up the phone and say, "I'm thinking of leaving the Church of Scientology." You know who I ended up talking to? My friend in Norway. Who's not a Scientologist. He's never been a Scientologist. But he was the only person I could think of to talk to. I couldn't talk to my friends because they're certainly not. I couldn't talk to the church because that's not going to work. I
Yeah.
couldn't talk to it was like...
Well, I want to say something too, right? Because if a Scientologist is watching this and they're in the church still, but they're on the fence, right? I don't want them... We all have different opinions about the quote-unquote technology, if you will, okay? And I don't want them to look at us and go, well, they're just a bunch of
nattering people.
whacks, right? Because I want to say this. It's like I had gains from the
me
quote-unquote
too.
technology.
Me too.
And there's a lot of good things
Totally.
about it, but, and this is a very huge but, it's what's behind the curtain that no one else sees.
Right.
It's the OSA. It's the idea that anyone who's critical of Scientology is a criminal. Now that's a lie. But look at how...
It's total
But
false
look at-
data when you
but-
really look at it.
But look at the mind control there. That means that if the Church of Scientology breaks the law and they are basically prosecuted, that prosecutor is a criminal.
That's right, because he's going after the
If
church.
somebody gets on TV, or like we all right here, and says, these things, these violations of civil rights, constitutional rights, breaking up families is not okay. We're critical. We're criminals.
We're criminals. So it's like anybody who says anything. It's like You could never not be a
But
criminal.
let me just say that that's a pattern with all totalitarian organizations.
Let's take a look here then, because as Scientologists we're trained that you judge something as bad or good based on intention and end result.
And
It's
stats.
products.
So you would have to say that it is bad because the intention is never to make anybody spiritual free.
Well,
That is not the intention of the Church of Scientology.
Right.
They are not if they were going to let you be free, then they'd let you have any opinion you want. Go to any church you wanted to go to. Talk to anybody you chose.
Right.
Look on the internet.
Go
which
on the
you
internet.
can't.
Be who you choose to be, not who they want you to become. That would be freedom. If they were offering you spiritual freedom, any of you guys could come and talk to me. Look at all my evidence. Look at the corruption of these 2 references that I found. Talk to me and walk away making your own decision.
Right.
You would totally have that. You don't have that freedom in the Church of Scientology. If you're going to be free, your kid could hate Scientology. You love it. And you don't care. Neither does the kid. And they wouldn't care.
Right. Everyone who's in Scientology needs to take a look at the benefits that they have achieved versus if they would look on the internet and find out the truth about the organization, the evils that the organization practice, that I'm sure most of the people who are public members of Scientology wouldn't approve of. Unethical conduct in the extreme. And each person will have their own reason for leaving Scientology and getting in Scientology in the first place. But I think what's important for anyone who thinks about ever getting in Scientology is to realize that none of the claims that Mr. Hubbard made have ever been proven to be true by anyone. I have been out of Scientology for 3 years now, and I can tell you for a fact that my mind is sharper and clearer than when I was in Scientology, and I feel better. I have creative work that I engage in, and I'm currently directing a film, and I can tell you that my creative work is much better. Those who are still in Scientology think that if they ever leave and they ever disconnect, all kinds of terrible, bad things will happen to them. Well, let me tell you folks, they won't. You're only going to get better. So that's my wrap-up statement. Tori?
Thank you. I basically want to say that I really want to make sure that each person looks and listens for yourself. It is a constitutional right that you have, that you can look and you can read and you can think for yourself. And I know for myself, just 2 months ago, being in the church, if someone said that to me, I would say, of course, I think for myself all the time, of course. Because that's the way it's set up. It's like, sure, you're thinking for yourself. Of course, what are they possibly talking about? All I'm saying is go on the internet, start looking up clam bake, read the things, listen, look, read, listen, look. Don't just take that, oh, of course you're thinking for yourself. You're an OT. That's what we all think. That's what you're ingrained in because they want you to not look, to not think. But what could that possibly be? If someone doesn't want you to think, what are they hiding? Go find out. Because I personally, I will say 20 years of my life I was happy I was a Scientologist. But the last 10 were a complete waste of my life and in fact a deterioration which I'm going to have to work out of. And I'm just saying don't waste your life just believing that you're OT or everything's great. Go look, go find out, read what people have to say, and then make up your own mind for yourself and really know what you're talking about on both sides, not just one side, both sides. We're all good people, but that's up for you to decide. Read and find out and listen to what other people have to say. There's many, many people that have left the Church of Scientology, tons. And that's the other last thing I want to say is that I was amazed because you think it's just the ex-Scientologists, and I only could remember a few, actually, but the truth is there's now this huge, huge army of critics around the world that are on this bandwagon about the church. Why? Because the church has tried to stop freedom of speech. And these are people that are just saying, not on my lot you're not. No. I'm here, and I'm here saying these people, these Scientologists are going to be able to speak, and they're going to be able to think for themselves. And I was shocked. Weren't you shocked?
Oh, I was
to
totally
find out
shocked.
how many people are doing this. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, and every day, the more OSA does, the more people that are critics, which are non-Scientologists, they're just people that believe in freedom of speech, are on the bandwagon. And believe me, they're great people. Oh, they're really nice people, and it's been wonderful to meet how many people are over on this side. So I welcome you to look and come. That's it.
But I would say, like Tori said, think for yourself and go look for yourself. And hopefully Mark will be able to put some websites at the end of this video for you to go look at. But look at these facts that I mentioned. They're undisputed facts. Go ask an IS registrar what's going on. They'll give you the Horror of the Month Club story to get thousands of dollars out of you. It's not the SPs that are attacking the church, ladies and gentlemen. It's the church creating its own enemies. And I'm glad that I went through the experience.
Sure,
Because you know what?
definitely.
I have learned what a cult is.
Sure.
I have learned
We know.
what mind control is. And I have learned that, and my wife and I have learned that we can stand up. Because we live 5 minutes from Flag.
Sure.
The mecca of tech.
Yes.
Let's put parentheses on that. We have stood up to this organization and said, no. You've terrorized us, we've withstood. We've held.
Good.
Right? But besides all that, look and see for yourself.
Mhm.
You know, make up
Definitely.
your own mind. The church
Sure.
has the motto, think for yourself.
Right.
Of course, they finish it with like, think for yourself as long as what you think is what we
It's
think.
what we've printed.
And all we're saying here is think for yourself.
For
And,
real.
if I could add one thing to that, Greg, too, talk to somebody else about it too.
Yeah.
In my case, Patricia Greenway showed me all this data, and I was able to talk to her about that.
Right.
And then it became much more clear. One of the things that's happened to all of us is we introvert into ourselves and we can't discuss the subject with anyone because it's nattering.
Oh,
Right.
And,
Right.
and then there's nowhere to go with it.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I would just add.
Yeah.
Is talk to somebody about it.
I stood up for that, and I wouldn't budge on that against tremendous pressure. I then found out that I have been supporting an organization for 20 years, that because I'm being honest and believe something that they don't want me to believe, that I am now a target for a black PR campaign to try to get me to change my mind. In other words, they vilified my reputation. They tried to destroy my business. They tried to destroy my income. They tried to break up my marriage. They wrote lies about me, told all my friends who sit out there brainwashed thinking this is all true, that what these people say is true. And in actual fact, I found out because I then decided, well, if these guys are doing this, I must investigate them and find out who they really are.
Per PR Series 18.
I'm just applying Scientology. I applied PR Series 18. It says, people that black PR you in my own church. Now let's talk about who in the church was doing this. It was coming from RTC.
And OSA.
RTC and OSA, and they used HCO to do it. It isn't everybody, every CR member over there that knows about this that's involved in it. It's a very particular line of people that are involved in this. And they are, through all my investigations, let me tell you who wrote OT5. It was Mayo. It's in a court document. LRH didn't write OT5. Mayo did. Go look at court records. Your church, I found out that my church has been lying to me for 15 years. Lying. In other words, everything I found out that my church promoted to me, the truth was the exact opposite. By actual provable documentation that could be verified in a court document, it was totally verifiable. So now I'm working with an organization I have promoted that I had supported for 20 years, who was trying to control me through lies. So how could an organization like that be offering spiritual freedom? So for those of you, my message is, don't ever get involved in this organization. It is not worth it. For those of you that are sitting on the fence, go look. Because finding out the truth and living an honest life is in fact the road to power, awareness, creativity.
Yes.
It is the road to what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Just that alone is the start.
And it's a lot cheaper.
That's right. It's a heck of a lot cheaper.
And healthier.
Suicide.
Kids committing suicide. See, this is all kept hidden from you. So those of you that are in the church are involved in a huge propaganda machine that is very easy to start going, I'm going to think for myself. Instead of this, I'm going to listen to what management says or what my friend says. Go start looking at actual facts and then make a decision for yourself, because I am telling you that a religious organization is not one that when you decide to leave, decides it must vilify you.
And when you do leave, remember this: the world is not a terrible place. It's not horrible and
They aren't
filled
all
with
lost.
SPs. Society is not generally degraded, particularly in the United States of America and some of the European countries where most of the Scientologists come from. It's actually a great world out there. You'll do just fine.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
right.
true.
That's right. It's
And very
huge.
friendly,
That's
very
right.
welcoming,
Huge.
very loving.
Right.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, look, are there troubles in the world? Yes. Have there always been troubles in the world? Yes.
Yes.
And Scientology is unfortunately adding to those troubles.
And one thing I
I-
will say, I gotta say this, I meant to say this earlier, is that Scientology is one of the most evaluative, invalidative, exclusive organizations I've ever known. And I've been a part of many. And it by the nature of it, it's supposed to be not evaluative, not invalidative. Listen. Open your ears. Listen. He's 1-1. She's PTS. They're this.
That's
Everybody else who
That's
thinks
right.
Scientologist is a
label.
wog.
That's
everybody-
right. Everybody else is a wad.
And the war is always on. You've got
Right.
to be in that war. That's what got me thinking too. Like, why are we always fighting? There's a war always
I don't know, like
going
Greg
on.
said,
But
what
only
was the
people
enemy
I know.
flavor of the month? That's the red side. What's the enemy flavor of the month?
Exactly.
Well, let me tell you, we found out that it is corrupt from the top down.
Yeah. And
Corrupt. I
that's
mean,
a
it is
particularly
corrupt.
interesting point. It starts at the top.
That's
And
right.
specifically where it's coming from is David Miscavige.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's
And you
David
know what,
Miscavige.
buddy?
And the other thing, I want people to know, those of you that have a story out there, let me tell you, it isn't that dangerous to come out, because there is a group now coming out. And the more people that come out and tell their story, the more power we get and the more chance we have of more people knowing that it's not just the three of us, it's the hundreds and it's the thousands that have a story.
And
We
the
get-
nature.
We get 3 phone calls a week at our house because of our video.
Right.
3 a week just from our video. And our video's only been out a couple weeks. 3 a week from people we don't even know. And they all have a story. It is time to come out and start letting the world know that this is not a religion. This is a legalized mafia. The only place I know on the planet that has religious status. Does it have religious status in Canada?
No, nowhere else in the world.
Nowhere else, so they hide behind the constitutional right to practice a religion, but it is a bogus operation. And people got to come out and start telling their stories so that we can stop. It is not okay that I can't leave an organization and they try to ruin my life. That shouldn't go on in the United States of America. And it's only going to stop if more people stand up and say, no, not okay. Start reporting to your congressmen, your senators. Make a video. Tell people your story. Let people know what happened to you.
And I want to say, as far as what Deb's saying, it's very true, because again, by the nature of the church, it's built in you that you just think it's just you, and you can't really, you really shouldn't say anything bad. I mean, when I left, I came out here, and I had said to one of my friends, I'm not going to make a video, I'm not really going to talk, I'm not going to do anything.
You're not gonna pick it either.
I'm not going to pick it, I'm just going to keep it all to myself. And then I started talking to some parents whose children had disconnected from them. And I happened to be up in Boston, and I thought, you know what, that's it. I'm going to pick it for those parents, because that's not okay with me. And I did. I went out and I started picketing, and I started writing on ARS about what was happening with my story. And every story I told, the freer I felt, because I
Right.
realized they were things that were done to me, and I felt I had to hold them in. Now I start saying, no, this is what Harvey Schmidecki did to me. He screwed me, man. And it's on the internet, and it is. You know what I mean? And it's like, boom, that's it. It's your problem, man. You pick it up with your clients and all the ratty things you did.
Let me just say one
I got a
last
little
thing,
mad
since we
there.
all have cycled around. The other thing that you think when you're in Scientology is that you're dealing with an organization that's omniscient and all-powerful. Let me tell you that it's far from the case. When I was in Scientology at the top level, I was briefed on the action of the group. They are not omniscient, they are not all-powerful. They cannot ruin your life or anything like that. They can try. It's very nasty. They can cause you to not be able to talk to your own son, or your business relationships can be damaged somewhat, but they're just a nasty little group of small-minded bigots, quite frankly.
That's right,
Right, and the
exactly.
more we
No,
all
that's
stand
true.
up,
Yeah,
the
that's
easier
true.
it is.
And the
That's
more
true.
of you who are out there, who are former members of this group, who want to stand up against these kinds of outrages, that just makes them smaller and less powerful than they really
And the
already
happier
are.
you'll be.
Right, and I want to add something too. Is like since we're all adding something, it's like Peter and Tori and Deborah. What I've discovered is I've met some of the nicest, salt of the earth people
Yeah,
in Scientology.
Totally.
yeah.
And you know what? We were all decent, most honest. Of course, I've met some of the biggest criminals also in the Church of Scientology as well. I mean, but I think that's in any organization or religion.
Right.
You think that you can trust everybody because they're a Scientologist, and you find out to your great dismay that
Not everybody.
that's not the truth at all.
Right.
But anyways, growing up is a learning experience. But most of the parishioners are good, law-abiding, hardworking. You got to be hardworking because you got to make money, a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Honest, ethical people.
So you have to decide what you're going to do.
Right. And they did us, they did us a favor. I have to really say this. It's like, yeah, they put our lives through hell, right? But if they would not have bitch slapped us like they did, we would not have woken up.
No, the truth of the matter
Then
is,
we would not have woken up. So thank you, Ben Shaw, and
No, if we
I'll
had-
give you some money for a hair piece because you're losing hair, Ben. Ben's losing some serious hair.